In this video, we're going to learn how to use Bootstrap to create a slider. With Bootstrap, we can create responsive sliders and we can include any HTML content in them. So we're going to create a slider just like the one we see on the screen. So we're going to have 3 slides, and each slide is going to consist of a picture with some text. Okay, so let's go ahead and create this. So first of all, we need to create a div of class carousel and slide. Okay, we can give our div an ID of my carousel, and also we need a data attribute. Is going to be data ride, which we'll set to carousel. Okay, now we're going to create the indicators. Okay, so each indicator is linked to a slide. So we're going to use an ordered list, okay, for the indicators, and each list item is going to represent one indicator. So the list is going to take a class of carousel indicators. Okay. So let's create the first indicator. So each list item is going to have a data target, which we'll set to the ID of the carousel itself. Okay, which is my carousel. And also we need a data slide to attribute, which we'll set to the index of the slide thus the indicator is linked to. So for the first indicator, we are looking at slide of index 0, and then second one index 1, and then index 2. Okay, so let's duplicate this. So the second one is going to index 1 and then index 2. If we want the first indicator to be active, we can add a class of active to the first one. Okay. All right. Now let's move on to the slides. So we're gonna wrap all our slides in a div that will have a class of carousel inner. Okay. Okay, and then let's create our first slide. So we're going to need a div of class item. Okay, and then we can populate the slide now. So let's put an image. So you're going to place this image. So let's add a source attribute to the image. In images, picture, JPEG, and also let's create some text. So you're going to place text inside a div of class carousel caption. Okay. And let's place text there in a paragraph. So first slide. Okay. All right. Okay, let's copy the same code for the second slide and for the third slide. we're just going to change this to second slide and then third slide. Okay, so we want the first one to be active, so we're going to use a class active. Okay, we still don't see anything. Okay, let's carry on. Okay, now we are going to create our controls, which are going to be links taking us to the next slide or the previous slide. Okay, so each one is going to be a link. Okay, so the first one is going to have a class. So we're building the left one, so we need a class left and carousel control. Okay, and we're going to give it an href going to the carousel itself, my carousel. Okay, and also we need a data slide attribute that we set to for previous. Okay, now we're gonna create our icon using the glyph icon. So we're gonna have a span of class glyph icon, chevron left. Okay. And just for assistive technologies, we can add another span with some text, and we can hide it using the SR only class. Okay. Now we can just copy the same code for the other control. We're just gonna change everything to right, and this slide is next. Okay, so now we can see our slider. Let's make sure that everything is working. Yes. Okay, so all right. Okay, now let's explore some of the methods and events we can use with the carousel plugin. So let's create a script. First, let's change the delay between automatically cycling items. So we're gonna use the carousel method for that. So let's select all the elements of class carousel. Okay, so we're selecting here our slider, and then we're going to use the method carousel, and we'll need an option. So the option is going to be interval, and we'll set that to the amount of time for the delay. So let's go for 2000 milliseconds. Okay, so now if we refresh, okay, we're going to wait 2 seconds between one item and another. Okay, all right. Next, let's use some of the methods or some of the events linked to the carousel. Okay, so by default, this interval, if you don't set anything there, by default is 5000 milliseconds. Okay, so let's just change this to 10,000. refresh. Okay, now we're gonna wait longer. Let's place everything inside the document ready function. I forgot to do that. Okay. Okay, now let's change the paragraph styling every time we cycle an item. Okay, let's make sure that our slide is still working. Yeah, okay. So we want the paragraph to change. Let's use a toggle class here so that we can swap between a class yellow that we're going to create that will give a yellow color to the paragraph. Okay. So let's add a class here of yellow. Okay. So let's change the color to yellow. Okay, so let's select our carousel using the class carousel, and then we're going to use the on method. So the event is going to be slide.bs.carousel, and the function is going to be selecting all paragraphs, and then we're going to use the toggle class method, and the class we're looking at is yellow. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, so you can see now that it is working. So the paragraph styling changes to yellow and then goes back to its original state every time we cycle the items. Okay, now we're gonna try something else. Let's write some code so that when we hover on one of these slides, the cycling just stops. Okay, so we're gonna select our carousel using the carousel class, and then we'll use the hover method, and then we'll place the function to execute inside the hover method. Okay, so we're gonna access this, okay, which is the carousel itself, and then we'll use the method carousel, and now we're gonna use a parameter pause so that we pause the carousel when we hover on the slides. Okay, so now we are hovering on this slide, so we'll see that the automatic cycling is going to stop. Okay. Okay, if we leave it, then we wait for the interval or the amount of time with delay, then it is going to start cycling again. Okay, let's refresh the page. Let's refresh the page and make sure it is working. Let's change the interval to 1 second so that we can see it's better. Okay, so now we've got the cycling on, and if you hover, it stops. Okay, we leave. Okay, it's still there actually. Okay, let's refresh again. Okay, if we hover on one slide, then it stops. Okay, but if we leave, it's the cycling doesn't start again. Okay, so let's do something about that so that it starts again when we leave the slide. Okay, so with the hover method, we can use a couple of functions, an in function and an out function. So the in function is the function that will be executed when you hover on the element. The other one, the out function, is optional, and we can use it here in our case. So this function is gonna be executed when we leave the element. So let's just copy the same function and place it in the second parameter. But rather than using the parameter pause with the carousel method, we'll use another parameter, it's cycle. So now when we leave the elements, we're going to start cycling again. So let's try it and make sure it's working. So let's refresh the page. So now we can see that we are cycling. We're going to hover on the slide. Okay, if we leave, it starts cycling again. All right.